Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured, why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say, I'm watching so-and-so show. And then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it. And that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 2 of Paramount Plus's 1923, entitled Nature's Empty Throne. Before I get started, I want to first apologize. I might sound a little bit rough. I'm getting past a cold. I'm just a little congested, but you might be able to hear it in my voice. And I'm also apologizing for getting this video out late for the exact same reason. I was in Canada doing Christmassy shit, and now I brought back this little bit of a cold with me, and it just didn't give me really much time to even watch the episode, let alone get a video out. Like, it doesn't help that Paramount Plus doesn't give a fuck that it was Christmas, and they're not going to give a fuck that it's New Year's Eve for the next episode. They're just going to put them out. And most of us just don't have time to commit to these sorts of things during that time period. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I can't really predict what the timeline is going to be like for a video for episode 3. Like I mentioned, you know, I think it's, I don't even think it's, I said the 31st. I think it's January 1st when the next episode is supposed to come out. And if you are unaware, because you don't follow me on Facebook, there's a big plan that is in place for January 1st that could inhibit me from getting this watched and getting a video out as soon as possible. But I implore you all to check out the Facebook page. I have all kinds of news on there. I made one big post that talks about what the rest of this year is going to look like and the plans for the beginning of 2023. And then lastly, I want to apologize just because, again, because of the congestion, I'm dealing with like this wildly large like saliva buildup in my mouth. It's kind of crazy, but we'll work through it because nothing's going to stop this show. So I want to talk about this episode because I really think this show has the potential to be just as good as 1883. And there are a lot of things that are happening in this show that I'm finding really intriguing. I'm really loving these stories. I'm really loving, again, the same thing I loved about 1883, seeing shit I haven't seen before, seeing problems arise and things that these characters have to overcome that are just like, yeah, that's the kind of shit you might have to deal with in 1923 that's not a thing in 2023. So I'm really enjoying that kind of stuff. But I am starting to have a few concerns about the Spencer storyline. So Spencer is the Dutton son, or depending on who you're talking about, Dutton great-grandparent, who we see in Africa in the first episode. We picked this episode up where the first one left off. The first one ended with, did this leopard kill Spencer or not? And we find out they didn't kill Spencer. But the problem that I think I have with this is that it didn't kill Spencer because this show really, really wants us to understand that Spencer is the manliest fucking man who has ever manned in the history of man. Like, Spencer is the pinnacle of manliness. And I'm just like, this feels like, I don't know, like a very base way of making Spencer like into this manly man, or so that we understand that he's a manly man. And I don't know where they're going with this, and that's the cause for my concern. Because I'm like, you gotta be a little bit more creative with showing me how much of a man Spencer is. So like, let's talk about it. He fights off this leopard with his bare hands because, like, of course, that's what you do when you're the manliest man who ever manned in the history of man. And it does kill one of his partners, though. The two African guys who he's been working with, who, I mean, he thinks very highly of them, but he did use them as decoys. But it does kill one of those guys. And Spencer discerns that the guy who hired them knew that there was two leopards this whole time and didn't tell them, or at least knew there was a possibility there was two. Because he said, like, Spencer said, like, they hunt in pairs. And he says, like, essentially, like, you knew there was two and you didn't tell us. And another part about that kind of like, okay, what's going on here? I don't think this episode properly conveyed why this guy would have that information and withhold it. There is no benefit to hiring a guy to come kill a leopard or two leopards, whatever the case may be. Know that there is two and tell him that there is one. Zero benefit. Zero. Unless he thinks he'll charge me double if there's two. Like, okay, but if he doesn't know, he might end up dead and now you still got you still got a leopard problem. Or maybe he's like, I don't know. Actually, I think that's the only reason I can really think of. Like, Spencer wouldn't do it, or he would charge double if he thought there was two. I don't know. But I think the episode dropped the ball with conveying to me why Spencer would believe that this guy would withhold that information, because why would he not tell you that in the first place? Seems very counterintuitive to what he's trying to accomplish and to what Spencer's trying to accomplish. So I don't know how I'm supposed to buy that. Like, why would he do that? But Spencer makes this guy apologize at gunpoint because he's like, you know, you didn't tell me, you didn't apologize to our other partner about his loss. You didn't apologize for, you know, the fact that you essentially we could have avoided this if you had been honest. And you didn't do that, so now this guy is dead. And he makes this guy apologize at gunpoint. Again, another example of just how manly of a man Spencer is. So let's run off some more evidence on how we're supposed to know that Spencer is like the biggest dick swinging guy in this whole show. He's tough, obviously. He fights off leopards with his bare hands. It doesn't get much tougher than that. He's loyal and he's caring. He'll make you apologize at gunpoint for not apologizing to his partner and for not admitting responsibility for what you did, or for just being responsible for what you did. He speaks multiple languages. Like, okay, that's convenient. He only needs a bottle of whiskey and a cigarette to get through the cleaning of his leopard wounds. Like, again, what a man this guy is. And he's a ladies' man. He has a woman who's willing to throw everything away after talking to him for about 45 seconds. He's like a James Bond Dutton. Complete manly man. What else we got? Okay, that's all I had for my evidence of why he's such the manliest man. So Spencer gets hired to kill a hyena in some place that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. And this girl, the one of the aforementioned one who swoons after talking to him for 45 seconds, she insists on going along. And again, this is another concern. Again, it's a concern. It could be I could be pulling the trigger too early on being concerned here, but I have a concern about this girl going with Spencer to this hyena murder, because I mean, that girl is so annoying. I mean, man, she was like a little kid or like a fly that just keeps buzzing by your ear and you're just swatting it and it's like, why does it keep buzzing right by my ear? She was so fucking annoying, and she seemed like a child. Like, this didn't seem like, oh, this is a woman and she's being flirtatious. This seemed like a 15-year-old who was flirting with a grown man but doesn't know how to do it like an adult woman because she's 15 years old. And they seemingly, again, I could be jumping the gun here, they seemingly want to tell this romance story with Spencer and this young girl, but she's just so annoying that it seems implausible that big dick swinging Spencer would tolerate bringing this obnoxious little girl along with him on this dangerous trip. It feels, I don't know. And, he says, you won't like going on this adventure with me. And she delivers this "don't bet on it" line so over the top ridiculous. Again, like a 12-year-old being told, you're not going to like this candy. And the 12-year-old goes, "Don't bet on it." Like, that's what that felt like. I'm like, this is not this little girl is not working for me. But then they show us the husband that she's engaged to, this Sheldon Cooper motherfucker. And when you are forced to juxtapose him with the ultra manly man Spencer, it does feel, well, it does. I wouldn't say it feels justifiable that the girl would want to ditch this guy to go with Spencer, but it just makes me feel like, look at the silly lengths this show is willing to go to in order to get this character, I think her name was Alexandra, out of this situation, in her situation with this marriage in Kenya, and into Spencer's situation. That sounds dirty. I don't mean like into Spencer's situation. No, I mean like into the Spencer storyline. And I don't know, man. Like but again, I don't know where they're going with this. He's gonna go to wherever he is with this hyena, and they might. I don't know where the story is gonna go from there. They have a goal though, to get that girl and Spencer in that place. They found a way to get us there. I'm just sitting here like, okay, how am I supposed to feel about the portrayal of Spencer? Like, am I supposed to be sitting here like grunting like Home Improvement, like, he's a big man? Or am I like, because what I'm really feeling like is like, come on, man. Like you're trying, this is really heavy-handed in how you're trying to make me understand that he's this manly man. But one thing that I did like about the Spencer storyline in this episode was his point about how important it was to properly clean his leopard wounds. Because he mentioned something like leopards get a lot of shit in their claws, so I can get gangrene in a week if this isn't cleaned properly. And I thought, I would never think of something like that. But that makes sense. They walk around on their paws. They have big claws. It's understandable. Anything, they'll walk through mud. They'll walk through dirt. They'll walk through shit. They'll walk through, use it to claw animals open. Like, there's all kinds of shit in those claws. So that makes sense. But him saying, like, if it's not properly cleaned, I'll get gangrene in a week, kind of felt like foreshadowing to me rather than, like, throwaway information. Because, I mean, that's what people die of at this time, right? Things that are easily avoidable today, but are huge fucking problems in that time. And that's what we saw in 1883. And it feels like that's what we might see with Spencer in 1923. But, again, I am curious still. This is an important character in the Dutton family. Why are we seeing this in Africa portion of this guy's storyline? Like, where is this going? Like, is he gonna connect with the Montana version? Like, it's too early for me to condemn the Spencer storyline, but I'm still kind of like, it's going in a direction I'm not a huge fan of. But again, I am still thoroughly enjoying this show. Moving on, talking about Jake. He has a shootout with the people who shot at Jack. We find out Jack also did not die, though I do still believe Jack is not long for this earth. But Jack did not die. They, in fact, shot his horse, which fell onto him. It's not as good as the shootouts in 1883, but there's still time. I thought there was a shootout in 1883 that was like while they were riding on horseback, that I thought was like really good. And they kind of tried to do that here, but it was too kind of like in a circle and not like the 1883 one. It was like they were riding across like this plain. It looked beautiful. It looked kind of badass. This just kind of looked like, hey, we're just in a circle riding around on horses we can't really control, shooting at each other. So it wasn't that good, but Jake has a shootout with these guys, which obviously was Bron and his people. And I promise I'll learn Bron's name on this show, but he hasn't been on it enough for me to pick it up naturally. And I don't know. I'm just going to keep calling him Bron because I know if whatever his name is on the show, if I say that, y'all are going to be like, who the fuck is that? Until I say something that you're like, oh, that was Bron that did that. So we're all in the same place right now. He's still Bron. By episode 3, he'll probably be whatever his character's name is, but just for the sake of, like, having fun and making it so we all know who I'm talking about, we're going to call him Bron. But he ends up capturing Bron, and he kind of sort of hangs him and his homies, but not really. He sends his sheep to the res, and he doesn't quite hang them, but it's like, he hangs them, but like they sit on their horse. So like, if the horse runs off, you're fucked. But if your horse is loyal and good to you and stays there and doesn't move, you'll probably be good. And maybe you can find a way to escape or somebody can come and save you. And there's an interesting moment in this sequence where Bron is basically kind of like, yo, you just can't hang me, bro. Like, what are we doing out here? This ain't medieval times. And that is still very much what happened. But it does kind of bring to the surface the idea of with civilization comes laws. And we didn't entertain that in 1883 because it was 1883. But now we're in 1923, we're 40 years later, and civilization is probably creeping its way westward. And I'm wondering if Bron's kind of like, oh, you just can't hang people, bro. Like, is this going to come back to bite Jake in the ass? Like, yo, you can't just, like, is someone going to come and hold him accountable for that? Like, no judge, jury kind of situation here. You just did that. Well, I mean, Bron doesn't die, but the other ones do. So I'm curious if that's where this is going, but I find that interesting, this idea of, like, him bringing that up. And again, that kind of felt like a throwaway line, but I don't think that it was. I think we are kind of, not meant to, but I think that we are going to understand that, like I said, with civilization comes laws, and maybe Jake's not going to be able to get away with this, whereas James on 1883 would have easily been able to get away with it. It was like, hey, you the first motherfucker to step foot on some land. Who gonna tell you what you can or can't do? There's nobody there. That's your shit now. So, oh, well, it's not your shit now, but they sure act like it is. But no, if you're the first person, it is. But they act like it's the first. They were the first, and they're not. But we don't need to drudge up well-known American history. Where was I? Okay, so Jake talks about how he hopes that at least a couple of these guys will live, so ultimately they can tell the story of how much of a badass he is, right? Bron does ultimately cut himself free, and I think that's the last time we see Bron in this episode. And then, like I said, the sheep get sent to the reservation. The guy that kind of receives the sheep, I understand his consternation, or his, not consternation, but like his general just curtness, I guess you would call it, with the Dutton people, just because, like, they look at these people as intruders, and it's like, okay, you know, you immediately see them and you're probably like, yo, fuck these guys, and they come like, hey, we're here to bring you sheep, and it's like, well, what's the catch? Like, how you gonna fuck me over? But he does seem angrily grateful, which I think is a good, like, combination of feelings to have in that moment. And he gives him a knife to give to Jake as a thank you, but he even gives the knife angrily. It's like he like looks mad. He walks up to him like he's about to do something. He's like, tell him thank you. Like, gives him the knife. Like, dog, I thought you were about to fuck him up. Like, well, why would you approach somebody like that if you're about to give them a thank you gift? Like, I don't know what's wrong with this guy. But that's pretty much where we end the Jake storyline this week. And then lastly, the Sister Mary and Tiona storyline. Sister Mary is teaching the girls how to sweep. She's teaching them how to do laundry. You know, essentially teaching them to be what you would expect women to do, to be productive members of society. Like, whatever. But, you know, I'm not going to whatever that. Like, I do find it interesting seeing not just how they're doing this, but the fact that these nuns or whatever truly believe that the lessons they're teaching will make these women, you know, proper wives for the wonderful white man. Make these women these wonderful wives, and still think that, like, the way that they impart these lessons is a decent way. Like the irony of being a nun and behaving in this manner is not lost on me, and it's real sad how it's lost on the people who actually do it. But that's like my little rant here. Catholicism, boy. She chastises this one girl, she being Sister Mary, for sweeping the dirt, like, off the porch without being told to sweep it off the porch. She's like, you know, sweep it to the end, and then this girl sweeps it off because she's so proud of herself. She's trying to show off. And Sister Mary slugs this girl, whatever. Why? She's a piece of shit. Of course she would. And Tiana's like, yo, fuck that. I'm going to, like, sweep it off in a fuck you kind of manner. And Sister Mary lets that slide, surprisingly. But when Tiana objects to eating this maggot-infested food that she's given, that crosses the line. Like, you can sweep dirt off the porch, but you can't not want to eat maggots. And so they attack each other. Sister Mary comes up, Tiana hits her, they jump her. She ends up getting her ass beat, Tiona does. And then she gets put in this thing they call the hot box, even though they put her in there at night, so I can't imagine it would have been very hot. But it would be hot. I mean, it would be hot for wherever they at, but, like, you know, on the west, you know, out west, but I can't imagine it being that hot out, you know, overnight. But I'm not sure how long she was there. I got the feeling it was overnight, but they didn't specify. Like, they brought her out in the daytime, but I don't know, was that overnight? Was she in there for 3 days and they brought her out in the daytime? I don't know, but they bring her out. She looks very just worn out, dehydrated, tired. They say she's feverish. They got her in this bathtub. They're dumping ice in the bathtub, trying to bring her temperature down. And she is too weak to even defend herself from being molested by this one nun because, hey, you got to hit the Catholic trifecta, right? Like, beat the shit out of people, molest underage people. Like what? Like what else? What's the third Catholic thing? Like, okay, they're gonna say a rosary or some shit. I don't know. But Sister Mary comes in and stops this one nun from molesting Tiona. But then she also goes and tells this whole story about how she's I can't even remember what the story was about, but it culminates with her deciding that she's gonna kill the Indian in her, and she beats Tiona with some sort of club, and it's just another situation of just like, how is Tiana gonna get out of this situation? But one thing I do need the show to do is to move us in that direction now. I don't need example after example after example of Sister Mary treating Tiona like shit. I understand the stakes here. I understand Tiona's situation. I understand who Sister Mary is. Let's now move this forward and move in a direction of what's going to happen here. Because there's a couple things to talk about here. One, like I said in episode 1, she's got to be a Rainwater ancestor, right? Like, she's got to be Tiona, whatever the fuck, probably Tiona Rainwater, and she's going to end up being, you know, one of his ancestors. What relevance will that have? Then also we find out that she is in this predicament in the first place because of almost like this weird kind of like school district thing situation. I hate following a smile with this sentence, but her mother's dead and her dad, I'm sorry, I had to. It's just how it happened. Her dad is like off working, and I guess the state deemed Tiona alone, and they put her in this boarding school, and her grandmother shows up to talk to the superintendent. She said superintendent. I'm saying superintendent. She shows up to the superintendent, and she's essentially like, you know, her mom's dead, her father's working. She lives with me, so she should be at her neighborhood district school, the one by me. And he is, again, he's a dick, but he's correct in saying, like, you can't just come up here and like verbally claim ownership. Like, you have to like legally adopt her. And he's a dick, but he's not wrong. And that is essentially where we leave that storyline. So we get to look forward to what the grandmother's next move is, how Tiona's going to continue to contend with her situation. We've got whatever's going to happen with Bronn. What's he going to do now that he's escaped? Is he going to tell the story of how much of a badass Jake is? Or is he going to tell the story of how much of a badass Jake is, but the problem is it's not going to make him look cool. It's going to make him look like somebody who needs to be arrested or something like that. Is that where we're going to go? You know, I wouldn't be surprised if, let's say, I don't know how many episodes this season is going to be, but let's say it's 8. No, let's say it's 10. Let's say it's 10. We've got 2 down so far. I wouldn't be surprised if Bronn gets Jake in trouble to the point where maybe they hang Jake, and now Harrison Ford's character is dead after 4 episodes, and now it shifts to the sons, I think he's probably John the First, and then maybe Spencer comes over. Shout out to my wife actually for putting that out there that maybe Jake will die, and that will cause Spencer to have to be brought over to Montana. But then if that happens, then it would kind of make me wonder, like, okay, well, what was the point of the Africa stuff there? Like, why do we get 2 episodes in Africa? Unless the whole point is that he's going to bring that annoying girl over. And, oh, God. I hope she becomes less annoying because I don't think she's going anywhere, unfortunately. But, again, I'm enjoying this show. These videos aren't doing too hot. I kind of don't care. I really fuck with this show, and I would hate to, like, have this be one of those shows where I love it and I don't really have proper content coverage of it on my channel. So I will be here sometime. I can't even say next week because it'll be a few days for episode 3. And until then, peace.